in this world, if you're replaceable, you will be replaced, right? So if in your job, you're in your 20s and you're doing something that other people could do, by the time you become 28, they can hire somebody 24 when they hired you, but for less money. They will do that right away. It's a brutal world. So if you're replaceable, you will be replaced. So the only defense against that is to be irreplaceable in this world. And the good news is that you are at your core irreplaceable. There is something strange and weird about you. Once again, I hate to say it, but it's a chapter that I'm writing right now for my Sublime book. Okay, and I explain in Mastery where that comes from biologically, your DNA, how you are marked as a unique individual at birth, the combination of variants in your chromosomes. It's mathematically impossible for it to ever be replicated. Yes, the variations are marginal. The differences aren't great between you and me, but those little differences are the differences between me liking this kind of hip-hop music and you liking a different kind of hip-hop music, right? It creates your inclinations. It creates your tastes. And so what the game of life involves is knowing your uniqueness, is knowing who you are, is knowing what makes you weird and what makes you odd, okay? And the problem is that we're social animals, and the pressure continually on us is to fit into a group, is to be like other people, to have their ideas, to have their values, to have their tastes, to dress like them, okay? And that happens when you're young, you're in your adolescence. We all go through that phase. I went through that phase. But if you keep on that track when you're in your 20s and on, which is happening a lot today through social media, you're going to lose that sense of what makes you odd and different.
Mm-hmm.
I compare it to a voice. When you're very young, that little voice in you is going, Robert, you should be a writer. Chris, you should be a blah, 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 blah. I don't know what it is, right? It's telling you something. And as you get older, you don't hear it anymore because you're hearing all the other voices. You're hearing your voices of your parents, the teachers, the culture around you, your peers, your friends, telling you this is what's cool, this is what's not cool. And that little voice comes completely drowned out. And so you don't know who you are anymore. And you're afraid, particularly young people today. I mean, maybe it's always been that way, are so afraid of being different. They're so afraid of being odd. But look at all the powerful people in this world. Look at your Elon Musks. Look at your celebrities in entertainment, in business, in politics. They're one of a kind. They have I hate that word, but it's like a brand. They're different. They stand out for something that's truly different. You know, even Albert Einstein, there's nobody else like Einstein. There's nobody like Da Vinci. Okay? That's where your power lies. And you'll go, oh, but Robert, those are people that were brilliant, that were talented. I'm not like that. I don't have that. Well, bullshit. You do have that. It's just you're forgetting about it and you don't want to put the effort into it. I talked in Mastery of a woman named Temple Grandin who was born with severe, severe autism. And she was able to find her way to become a very brilliant professor, academic, writer, and about animals, animal behavior, and about autism itself. She found her way to it when she was 3 or 4, she couldn't even speak any language. She was going to be hospitalized. You have that potential. It's just you're not putting the effort into it. You are lazy. You want to fit into the group. You want to conform because it's easy. But your oddness, what makes you weird, what makes you different, that little strange quirk in how you want to dress yourself, that little strange quirk in your musical tastes, that little quirk in the food that you like to eat, that is who you are. Those are signs from deep within, from your core, or from your soul. This is who you are. And if you lose that, not only are you not going to be successful in life, you will also lose yourself, and you will be unhappy, you'll be alienated from who you are. And you can get away with that when you're young because you're happy, you look good, you've got energy, things are going right. You get into your 30s, and you're like everybody else, and you don't know who you are and you don't know what you like anymore, and you're just following the trends, you start to get depressed and you start going down this rabbit hole and things can turn really ugly. So you need a bit of courage in life. You need to go, okay, I am weird. I am strange. Lean into it. So when I had the 48 Laws of Power, when I first wrote the book, without it being published yet, it was a very strange looking book, and it reflects my own strangeness. Things on the margins, stories, everything broken up, images, quotes here and there. It's kind of how my brain is, a hodgepodge, kind of a mess, really. And the publishers, they bought the book, but then they came back to us and they said, Robert, can you kind of maybe make this more like other books? Can you get rid of all those sections and everything? And I said, no, take it or leave it. This is the book as it is. It's odd, it's strange. They didn't like that because if it doesn't fit into all the other books that have had successful, it's too big of a risk. If this movie isn't like the movies that were made last year, who knows who'll go see it? People are so conservative. But because it was odd, it stood out and it was successful. If I had succumbed and I compromised and made it more like other books, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So sometimes you need a little bit of cojones. You need a little bit of courage. You need to stand up and say, I'm okay being different.
It's fascinating that lots of people, maybe most people, want to be extraordinary in some way, but also don't want to stand out in a way that allows them to be mocked. But, the latter is the price of the former. You can't behave the way that everybody else does and expect to not get the results that everybody else gets. It's like, I think about regressing to a mean that doesn't exist. That everybody is idiosyncratic and unusual in their own way. And we're all imagining this sort of odd 50th percentile avatar that is the most acceptable. But when we think about why we love the people that we love, we don't love them for how average they are. No one's ever said, you know what it is? I'm just besotted with how predictable all of her opinions are. No one's ever said that. We love people for their eccentricities. And a friend, George, has the idea of non-fungible people, like non-fungible tokens, that it's irreplaceable. There is nobody else like them.
Yeah.
If you think about your favorite memories from your favorite people, it's not from the things that are easily replaceable. It's from the fact that they were just obsessed with football. And when the football was on the TV, you could talk to them and they wouldn't even turn to you. Or it was the fact that they hated violence, or they loved dogs. Every dog walked into the room and they would be gone. They would be away. That's what we love people for. And my favorite strange person from history is Salvador Dali. And I would take it one step further. You said you kind of have this, it's advantageous and also psychologically healthy for you to embrace who you are fully. I actually think in some ways it's maybe I would go as far as to say that it is our duty to humanity. I think it's our duty to embrace the things that only you can do.
Yeah, well, in nature, the diversity of species in a habitat make it vital, make it alive, make it sustainable. And that comes from mutations in the genetic code. Some insect has a mutation, and therefore a whole new species, a whole new thing splinters off from that, and it creates variety. Well, in human culture is like a habitat in a way. So you're marked with uniqueness by your genetic code. Insects don't really have individuality. We have individuality, and they are like mutations. And so your mutation, your difference, you being Chris, is for a purpose. You're marked that way because by mining your uniqueness, your weirdness, your oddness, your little quirky tastes, you're going to contribute something new to the culture. And in contributing something new to the culture, you enrich it and you keep it turning around and round and round. Cultures in the past that die on the vine don't have any variety. You can look at like the Soviet Union at its most, decadent, or when it was really at its worst phase, like in the 70s and 80s. There's no change. There's no variety. Early on, there was all sorts of weird different voices. They ended up getting imprisoned and murdered. Okay. But a culture has to have variety. It has to have a diversity of voices.
Like a gene pool or an immune system.
Yeah. And so you, by being odd, you're contributing to that. You're contributing to the culture. By not doing that, you're not contributing at all. And it's a real waste of what nature gave you.
I always think, again, about Dali. I spent quite a bit of time researching him, and I think as brilliant as they were, Michelangelo didn't do Dali. Da Vinci didn't do Dali. In fact, there's that famous job application that Da Vinci sends, I think, to the King of Italy. And Da Vinci's sort of listing all of the different things that he can do. I can make machines for war and a trebuchet and a blah, blah, blah. The final paragraph, he writes the sentence, also I can paint. I always think about also I can paint. Yeah. What is the also I can paint that I don't see in myself? What are the things that my friends really value? Perfect example, the guy that I was talking about earlier on, George. I've been learning a little bit about myself, and I discovered over the last year that I'm a people pleaser in some regard. And I was lamenting this to him over Christmas as we were driving to go and get food. And I sort of brought up something I'd done with him, which was sort of being overly cautious that I would have done something that would have annoyed him or stepped on his toes in some manner. And he said, I just want to sort of stop you there, because I'm aware that to you, you've been able to frame that as people-pleasing in this thing that is malignant and you want to get rid of. But to me, that's you thinking about me first, which is actually one of the things that makes me love you as a friend. So be very careful sort of labeling areas, creating an unnecessary value judgment. And I think getting another perspective, and that really gave me pause. I just thought, yeah, I'm so agreeable with all of these things, and I hate disappointing people, and I think that other people's emotional states are my responsibility, and so on and so forth. And then I bring it up to a friend, and he says, yeah, that's why I love you.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have a little bit of control over something. So if in certain situations, sometimes it's good to be able to not be so pleasing, because I'm a people pleaser too. It's my nature, so I understand that. And sometimes you have the feeling that it's not coming from the right place.
Correct. You're not choosing to, you're obligated to by your nature. And
you're feeling a little bit of fear involved in it.
Yep.
Fear of displeasing, a fear of rejection, a fear of being different. And it probably goes back to childhood and to my parents, who probably have similar parental dynamics. But what's good about what you're saying is, and I completely agree, and I wrote about this, I think, in Human Nature, is that you have this quality. You can't really control it. It's who you are. You know, it's either genetic or it comes from those first couple of years with your mother or father. So make it work for you. Find the way that it's a strength and see it as a strength and use it, and don't have second thoughts about it. Use it for power, right? And don't be so conflicted about it. It's all how you look at it. And there's a reason why you're a people pleaser. And you can, if you weren't a people pleaser, you wouldn't be doing podcasting. You'd be this asshole. I would never have agreed to be on your podcast, right? So it's just that in moments you wish you could control it a little.
It's kind of like the grass is greener thing that we were talking about before we got started. You know, this assumption that the thing you don't have is more valuable than the one that you do, or that things would be fixed if only you could have that. But what else comes along for the ride? You know, if you got rid of your people-pleasing nature, what are the little parasites that your lack of people-pleasingness would also have attached to it? Are you sure? Are you really sure that that's the thing that you want?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's where it comes down to knowing yourself and knowing what makes you different, and knowing these are things you can't really change. So my wanting to be a writer, or Tiger Woods wanting to be a golfer when he's like 2 years old, there's probably some genetic component in it. And maybe there's some early bonding, but there's probably a genetic component to it. You can't control it. It's who you are. And maybe that you can't control it is a good thing. And maybe it's there for a reason. And maybe if you wanted to do something else, it wouldn't work out. So my knowing that I wanted to be a writer instead of, you know, a businessman or a lawyer like my parents wanted to be, probably saved my life, to be honest with you. So knowing what makes you different is kind of going to guide you past these dangerous moments in life and make you want to change who you are because you feel pressure, social pressure to change who you are.
Yeah. To regress to this imaginary mean. Yeah, two elements I think of me that are genetically predisposed or at least very deeply embedded. The first one is I've always liked to talk and ask questions. And as a child, I always used to get in trouble in school because, unfortunately, my voice appears to carry further than everybody else's. So even though the naughty kids would be genuinely being naughty, poking other people with fucking protractors or something, I would be the one that was heard. Even though I wasn't misbehaving as much, I would be the one that was heard. You're being nosy. You know, children should be seen and not heard. You stop being so why are you asking all of these questions? Would be one of them. And the other one is solitude. I'm an only child. I spent a lot of time listening to audiobooks in my room, playing with toys on my own, throwing a ball off the wall and seeing if I could kick it off that wall and then catching it. Hours and hours and hours because I didn't have anybody else.
For me too.
Didn't have anybody else to play with. And you think, well, God, you know, the things that you're punished for when you're a child are the things that you think are malignant when you're a child. You're often rewarded for if you can just find the way to alchemize them as an adult. So I'm sure that your ability to sit and read or go to a cabin or write in your room and nobody's come and gone and you haven't noticed, and you think, well, my solitude as a child was maybe something that I lamented or that I saw as a weakness or something like that, and yet it's a superpower when I become an adult if I can find the way to channel it. And the same thing for the question asking or the listening to audiobooks. You know, what's the 2024 internet version of an audiobook? It's a podcast. It's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. You know, it really just comes down to being aware of who you are, what makes you different, and being comfortable with it. And so you're going to have moments where you're not comfortable with it and you want to conform and you want to be like other people. And, you know, you went through that and I went through that in adolescence in particular, on through the 20s. You make some changes to things because you think it's cool, but you keep coming back. You keep coming back to being alone.
Mm-hmm.
You keep coming back to throwing the ball against the wall in some metaphorical way.
No. I kid you not. The way that I like to relax now in between sessions of work, I get a tennis ball and throw it against a wall. It's the most bizarre thing.
I had the same thing, but because I'm American, mine was baseball. And I had a ball and I'd throw it against the garage door and I would play all these different games with my glove on and I would catch it and I would imitate the crowd cheering me. And this was a home run, this was et cetera. You know, and if I could do it today, I still would. So I understand that. But you come back to these things because they're so strong in you.
Yeah.
And you can't help it, and they give you relief, and they give you comfort, and they're who you are. And so it all comes down to, do you come back to these things, or do you change because of the pressures of other people? And what is the difference? Why are some people like that and some people are not? And that's the $1 million question.
I think it's swimming upstream or swimming downstream is working against or working with your nature.
Yeah.
And trying to find a way to make it work for you as opposed to trying to change it so that you can find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Sean Puri, who does My First Million, very, very smart guy. I remember one of the first conversations I ever had with him on Zoom. He had a sort of small leather black basketball in his hand. And we were just talking and he was a little bit further back in his desk and he was tossing it like this and rolling it along the desk and sort of you throw it in the air. Like, what? So it wasn't like we were writing anything. It was a casual conversation between friends. I said, what are you doing? He says, I grew up playing basketball. I'm happiest with a ball in my hand.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy fuck, that's me. Every time that I go to the park, if there's a tennis ball, that's now mine for the rest of it. And I'll bounce it in my hands until we finish up. And then I'll, the tennis ball charity pool that it goes back into the park.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy fuck. So I came up with a name for that, which is a weirdness role model. And it's somebody who does a thing that sort of breaks the ceiling on what you thought was acceptable behavior. You've seen this guy do a thing and you go, oh my God, like maybe I could have a ball on my desk. Maybe I could have a tennis ball or a cricket ball on my desk. And that means that I can, because I've seen this guy do it, and it's a weirdo role model or a weirdness role model.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we all need that in our life. People who are different. I remember in high school, I had an English teacher who kind of changed the course of my life. And he was very weird. He was very different. His way of thinking was different, and how he talked about writing and literature was very odd. And other students hated him, and I thought he was just fantastic. So it's kind of interesting what you said. There was a role model I could see, and he was just a high school teacher, so it wasn't like a career path for him. But I could see that having that kind of quality was a good quality, and I was attracted to it.
Traveling should be about the journey, not the chaos of packing, which is why I have been using Nomatic's Backpack and Carry-On Pro for over a year now. This thing is the best backpack on the planet. I did an entire month on tour on just hand luggage alone. It's like the Swiss Army knife of travel packs. They've got pockets for your laptop, your clothes, your snacks. It is so well organized that even your toothbrush feels important, and the amount of thought that they've put into every pouch and zipper is incredible. It's beautifully designed, it's not over-engineered, and it will literally last you a lifetime with their lifetime guarantee. So this is the final backpack that you will ever buy. Plus, they also offer international shipping, free shipping on orders over $49 in the United States. And if you don't like it for any reason, you can return or exchange it within 30 days. So you can buy it completely risk-free, fill it with all of your possessions, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. Right now, you can get a 20% discount by going to the link in the description below or heading to nomatic.com/modernwisdom and using the code MW20 at checkout. That's nomatic.com/modernwisdom and MW20 at checkout. You are your own worst enemy. You waste precious time dreaming of the future instead of engaging in the present. Since nothing seems urgent to you, you're only half involved in what you do.
Yeah. Well, I like to think of who the human animal is. I like to take this out of the little specific and go into the meta area here. And what it meant to be human. We're a very creative species, right? We have language, we have consciousness, we have immense powers. Those powers developed under the pressures of necessity, of having to get things done, of having to survive in a very brutal, ruthless world where a leopard could pop out tomorrow and eat me, where there were dangers all around, where food was scarce. And under the pressure, we had to think, we had to be creative, we had to be inventive, we had to be strategic. The human brain evolved under immense amounts of pressure, okay? That's how the brain works. And I almost like to think of it in terms of barometric pressure. So in your brain, when you're feeling that barometric pressure, it's like, I got to get this done or I'm going to fail and this project won't happen and people will laugh at me. You work like a fiend. Energy, your whole body responds, right? Your blood gets moving. You accomplish things that would normally take you months. You do it in days because you feel that pressure. You take away that pressure and you don't know what to do. And I've got like 3 years, I could do this or that. Another, you just wander around, you're lost. You have no energy, you have no focus. You know, you're maybe playing video games, maybe you're watching porn, you're kind of distracting yourself in the moment. But it's, but your energy is just being dissipated in like 20 different directions. So your brain needs pressure. It needs constant pressure. And stress and pressure is not a bad thing. We have this thing where we feel like stress is bad. It's bad for you. Bad. You know, you need to relax, man. You need to chill. Stress will kill you. No, being bored will kill you. Not having anything to do will kill you. Is much more dangerous than stress. Yes, you can work too hard. You can work where there's no soul involved. I work like a fiend because I'm writing a book, and it's a very hard process for me. And I'm working far too much, but man, I love it. It's fantastic, right? And it could kill me. The stress could kill me, gave me a stroke. But I'd rather die under the stress than be bored and have nothing to do. Okay. So feeling that pressure, it makes your eyes pop open. It makes your brain focus. It makes you alert. It makes you want to live. It makes everything seem exciting to you because you've got to get things done. So I'm writing a book right now. I could take 12 years to write it, but that wouldn't be I wouldn't feel good about it. So I give myself deadlines. I gave myself a deadline of finishing this chapter by July 31st. Here it's August 10th. I haven't finished it, but now I'm working double hard to try and finish it in time. Because if I didn't have a deadline, I would take forever.
Manana.
Yeah. So create pressure for yourself is a good thing. You know, I gave a talk recently in which I talked about Thomas Edison, the great inventor. And Thomas Edison was a young man. He's in his early 30s. He had invented the phonograph and a new wave for the telegraph, but he hadn't really had any major inventions. He had started Menlo Park, his industrial park for doing research. We're talking about the 1870s, I believe. But he did something very interesting and very strange. I don't know how conscious it was, but he gave an interview with a newspaper. And he said, I've been working on creating the incandescent light bulb. Now, before that, there was the arc light, which was a light that was really powerful. It used far too much energy. You couldn't use it in the house. The way houses were lit was with gaslight. Gaslight was dangerous, it was explosive, and the companies in America that had a monopoly on it. So the prices, it was very corrupt business. So he goes, I'm working on the incandescent light bulb. The reporter's going, that's interesting. He goes, yeah, I'm close to nailing it. Wow. And he goes, yeah, and in 5 years, I'm going to light the entire city of New York with the incandescent light, with electric light. Whoa, they go crazy. They published this article, and the stock prices of gas start going down. Money flows into his coffers because the cheapness of a light bulb, the profits are just insane. So money is pouring in. He goes back to his Menlo Park where he develops ideas, and his employees who are reading about this go, Mr. Edison, what are you thinking? You had just tinkered with the incandescent light bulb. We're not even near inventing it. We're not even near creating it. And the idea of lighting New York, it's what were you thinking? What were you smoking? The equivalent thereof. And he goes, well, gentlemen, I said it to this major newspaper. We better get to work. We better make it happen. What happened with all the money that came in, he could now hire the people to do it. But the pressure of getting that done in 5 years made him do it in 5 years. It was a monumental work of persistence and discipline and detail. But he had a deadline. He didn't want his reputation. He didn't want to disappoint the public. He had to get it done in 5 years, and he did get it done in 5 years. So he created his own pressure by using the publicity angle.
And people are going to expect it. When's it happening? Has it happened yet? You said it was going to have happened by now? Yeah, I think Naval Ravikant talks about how when he was at one of the first companies he ever worked for in Silicon Valley, and he started telling people, I'm going to start my own startup. And 6 months later, he was still there. And everyone said, well, I thought you were starting your own startup. And that was the push out of the door for him.
Yeah.
He couldn't bear the expectation that he'd put not on himself, only on himself, but also from other people too. So I suppose our need to be socially consistent can be bad when it's maybe derogating your uniqueness, your idiosyncrasies, and your weirdness. But if you can funnel it to motivate you to go forward.
Yeah.
It's the reason why, I don't think that I would be particularly successful being a journalist, for instance, despite the fact that I do 3 episodes a week it's been 4 years that we've done that. It's been 6 years the show's been going. But this is because my need to not look silly in front of other humans and how much I am enthused by the presence of others, even whilst being quite introverted, means that by doing a podcast, I've never not shown up. I've never cancelled because of something that hasn't been, a justifiable reason. Because I don't want to look silly in front of the person I'm sat opposite. If it was me in a blank piece of paper, God, the motivation to do that, every 3 times a week, I need to come up with a new column of 1,000 words. Whereas for the person who wants to just write on their own and come up with headlines and stuff. Oh, guys, sit down with a person again, have a conversation with them and ask them questions. That's not my sort of thing. So yeah, being able to use the social mores to kind of pull you to where you want to be, to understand again your own fallibility and insecurities, and attach those like a south and a north magnet, sort of use that to pull you along.
Yeah, I always like to riff on what you're saying. I always like to challenge myself. So I never, each book that I do, I'm now on my 8th book, is different from the other one, right? And my books take several years to write. They're not like, I can't put them out in 6 months. Each one is different from the last one. And I'm taking a risk because my readers are expecting Robert to write about strategy and power. Now he's writing about mastery.
Seduction,
yeah. Now he's writing about the sublime. What the hell was his problem? Okay, it's a challenge. And the challenge is good because it gets my energy levels going. But if I took a challenge that was too difficult, so there's a level here. So I could go here and write another 48 Laws of Power would be like this. It would be kind of easy. I could go here and write a book on how to build a skyscraper out of 10, I don't know, whatever. Okay. I could never write it. It's too big of a challenge. Or, the history of all human ideas. Okay. That would be the equivalent there. Okay. No, I kind of go here. It's a challenge. It's not here, boring, 48 Laws of Power Part 2. It's not history of world ideas, 4,000 pages. It's here. It's a little bit above me. It's going to get my energy going, but it's not impossible. And that's the game of life. So if Edison had said, I'm going to light the entire world in 5 years, no way. New York was a pretty hefty lift.
I'm going to light New York in 50 years also.
Yeah, exactly, which is probably more realistic. It was a challenge. It was a pretty big challenge, but it was not an impossible one.
We'll get back to talking to Robert in 1 minute, but first, I need to tell you about AG1. In my quest for the best greens drink on the planet, I went through just about every single option, and after a year of testing, I found AG1. 3 years later, I still use it every single day because it is so much more than just greens. It is the most comprehensive, highly tested, and rigorously formulated supplement I've ever found. With one single scoop of AG1, you're replacing multiple health supplements like multivitamins, digestive aids, immune supports, and more. It is NSF certified, meaning that even Olympic athletes can use it. There is a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you've heard about AG1, you're thinking about trying it, you can buy it completely risk-free. Try it for 89 days, and if you do not like it, they will give you your money back. Plus, they ship internationally. Right now, you can get a year's free supply, vitamin D3 and K2, 5 free AG1 travel packs, plus that 90-day money-back guarantee by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinkag1.com/modernwisdom. That's drinkag1.com/modernwisdom. It is a curse to have everything go right on your first attempt.
Yeah, the proverbial one-hit wonders. What happens is, there was a real syndrome in hip hop. And, I talked a lot about that with 50, where you come from the hood and you've never had any kind of money. And then overnight, you've got, 6 figures, 7 figures. You've got women like, left, right, and center coming to you. You've got all this power and attention and celebrity, and it goes to your head. And you start partying, and you start thinking, okay, I better put out another album. But you get a little bit conservative now because you want to keep going, and you think that you've got a formula for it, right? And then your second album doesn't do nearly as well. But if that first album didn't do well and you were smart about it, it would have taught you a valuable lesson about the music industry. So 50, he did his first album called Power of the Dollar. And I have a kind of a bootleg copy of it he gave me, and it's absolutely it's available now pretty much on the internet. It's absolutely fantastic. But right before it was to be launched, he got shot, and the producers dropped him on the album. They didn't release it, and they dropped him from Columbia Records. It's too dangerous. It was a drug beef, and we can't have this guy touring if there's going to be violence. And so he was thinking, the failure, instead of it had been a big hit, would have gone to his head. Who knows what would have happened to him. Here he was, like, completely back to square zero. In fact, worse, he had nothing. He did all this work, and he had this price on his head, and nobody would come near him. And he wanted to learn what the lesson was from this failure. And it wasn't his fault. Although it sort of was, because he had been a crack dealer, and it was like a previous beef that he hadn't really resolved. So, it was maybe partially his fault. Anyway, he goes, well, the lesson is I can't be dependent on a record label. They're too conservative. They're too cautious. I'm somebody who lives on the edge. My music plays on the fact that I was a crack dealer, that I live dangerously, that I'm the real thing, that I'm not a fake gangster, I'm the real thing, okay? So what am I going to do? I'm not going to put out a record. I'm going to do mixtapes, and I'm going to sell them on the streets of Queens, and then Brooklyn, and then Manhattan. Just these little tapes, these singles, and I'm going to be as violent. His first one that he puts out is called Fuck You. He's saying, fuck you to everybody who ever doubted me. Fuck you who tried to kill me. Fuck you to the record labels, pardon my language, etc. So he learned from that. He learned not to take success for granted, and he built on that. And so he's not a one-hit wonder. So sometimes success, when you're in your 20s, is the worst thing that can happen to you, because you have no discipline, you have no perspective. You think it's just going to keep going the way it is. You're not aware of all the dangers out there. You don't have life experience enough to realize how things could turn on you very quickly. If I had been given the chance to write the 48 Laws of Power when I was in my 20s and I had success, it would have ruined me. I probably wouldn't have had success.
Why?
Because I wasn't ready for it. Look, Chris, I had so much failure until I was essentially 39 years old, pushing 40, that I had perspective, that I know what it's like to fail. And so when I had success, it wasn't like, wow, I'm the greatest thing that ever happened. I can just live off this forever. My next book's going to be fantastic. No, I have a little voice in me that says, Robert, you failed so many times, you're probably going to fail again, right? You've seen so many people in Hollywood who started off hot and bombed. I had experience to know that I can't take this for granted. I have to be careful. I have to be strategic. I have to build on it and not let the success go to my head. And it didn't go to my head. When I wrote The Art of Seduction, I was so worried that book would fail. I was certain it was going to fail. I felt that way about every single book I've ever written. I still feel that way. This next book,
Certain.
it's doomed to failure. I better make it the best book of all. So if you can get drunk on your success, and don't get high on your own supply was the phrase that 50 would always say. So you want to keep your feet on the ground. You want to know that failure is nipping at your buds. At your next podcast, Chris, could be the worst one of your life. You'll say the wrong thing, and suddenly everything will start cratering.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps you on the edge, and you don't take your success for granted.
Yeah, I'm very glad when I look back at the period that when we first spoke, up until the second time that we spoke. So it was about episode 78. It was about episode sort of 350, something like that. And that period, if you look at the graph of plays and followers and money, is like that. It's just flat. The graph is just totally flat between the two. There's a little upward tilt. And it's the law of anything which becomes exponential, that as you start to zoom out more, it makes the very beginning look even more paltry. And it's that up to there. But that's only been the last 2 years.
Oh, I see.
2.5 years. It's there. And I tell this story that there was days in 2018, the year that we launched the show, where we'd been going for maybe 10 episodes, 20 episodes, something, we're halfway through the first year. And there was days where we'd do no plays. I'm still releasing weekly episodes. And there was days where there would be no plays. My mum listened to every episode, and I've got friends. I'm still in the guilt-ridden, you should listen to my new thing. And 0 plays, nothing. I'm like, that's insane. And I'm glad. It makes me, every time that I get to find a random garage in the middle of LA and think, oh, we get to light this and make it look like a cinema movie, like a Hollywood movie in Hollywood. How cool is that? Yeah. And
people, as I said, the main mistake we make in dealing with other people, and it's a common mistake that I make as well, is we take the appearances for reality. We take their masks for how they appear to us, for their politeness, for their smiles, for their saying, oh, I loved you, etc., for the reality. And we have to learn to look behind people's masks. We have to learn what's really, really going on behind them. And we have to learn some basics about human nature. People like to believe that they're essentially good, saintly, virtuous, however you want to do it. People want to believe that they're intelligent. You never want to feel like, I'm not stupid, I'm intelligent. And the other third thing is that they're willpower, that they're in control of their lives. They do things because they decided to do it. To make people feel insecure about their intelligence, right? To make them feel like they're not moral or they're not good. To make them feel like they do things not because they choose to, but because they were forced to, or because they're not aware of themselves. They hate that. They're going to hate you. They're going to resent you. They're going to resist you. Knowing some basics about people like that gives you the power to use that for influence, for persuasion, okay? Understanding envy in the human world. And on social media, envy is just is like a nuclear bomb. It's just exploded. Our tendency to feel envy, to compare ourselves to other people. You've got to use that for power. There's great power in that, in a marketing publicity sense. Virality, getting other people to be interested in what other people are doing. That's how things sell themselves. If you try and tell people what they should buy, as opposed to, look at what other people are doing, I want to join in on that, right? Knowing about these basic qualities in human nature, about how we like to compare ourselves, how we have these certain opinions about ourselves, et cetera, gives you all of this power to take that human nature and use it for whatever purposes you want, for good, or unfortunately, some people use it for bad.
Do we have to lie to be successful? And I say this because through reading some of your work, I heard sentences such as, you should keep your true intentions hidden in social situations. You say a lot about kind of cloaking yourself in various ways. You talk about showing up as an actor, that sometimes we do need to show up as an actor in our lives. So in order to be truly successful, I know it's a little bit of a difficult question, but do we have to lie?
Look, Stephen, being a human being means we lie, right? The moment you open your mouth and you speak, you are essentially not telling the truth. You know what doesn't lie? Body language, nonverbal communication, the way you smile, the look in your eyes. You can't lie about that. But children, 3 or 4 years old, are already learning to craft what they say to mommy or daddy to get what they want. They're very clever. They're very strategic, right? They know that if they say that what they exactly want, they won't get it. They learn to kind of whine and complain and put a certain tone in their voice and to be an actor. A social animal like we are actors in life. Get over this idea about guilting about it. I'm so sick of that. We are actors. We are descended from chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are consummate actors. Read the literature on that. They know how to deceive incredibly well, and they don't even have language to deceive, right? So we are actors. The moment you go out in the public, You're not telling people, oh, you're fat, you're ugly, your writing sucks, you da 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 da, I don't like what you're wearing. You never do that. You're an actor. When you see your father, you act a certain way. When you see a little kid, you act a certain way. When you see a little kitty cat, you have a certain tone in your voice. When you deal with your boss, the person who pays for your podcast, I don't know if there is such a person, you act a different way. You're constantly changing who you are and how you are. One moment you're Robert De Niro, the next moment you're I don't know what other actor you are, but you're changing your roles depending on who you're dealing with. I'm so tired of people not recognizing this fact that we are all actors, that we are constantly deceiving. Yes, there are differences, there are qualities of lying. I understand that. There's Donald Trump lying, and there's the lying of the everyday white lies in which we have to say certain things to get ahead, et cetera, et cetera. There are degrees, I understand that. And some lying can be very harmful and very counterproductive in the end. But the moment you enter the world and the moment you open your mouth, you are in some ways already an actor, and you are already using forms of deception.
Why can't we be our true selves?
Because it would irritate people, because it would grate, I don't know about you, but I appreciate politeness, right? I go somewhere and I know someone's being polite. I know that they're not necessarily meaning it, but it's nice, right? It's